Q103, it is the Rhythm of the Islands. On the phone right now, I've got Ho'ola Nā Pua and Jessica and Tammy. These two ladies have been helping the entire of Hawaii work with children that are being sex trafficked and providing care for children who have been exploited through that. Now, one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because right now in January, it is Sex Trafficking Month. Is that correct?
It's actually National Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Thank you.
That was the proclamation by President Obama.
Thank you. I'm like going through all of the funds and seeing how crazy this stuff is. There is so much information that you folks do aside from just preventing sex trafficking. You share education. You have training for professionals. You guys have community outreaches, and you guys do so much more than just that, though, right?
We do. So we are actually engaged in direct service with kids who have either been exploited or kids who are high risk for being in situations of exploitation. We have a mentoring program. We work in 7 youth facilities across the country, across the island. And we work with around 70 to 80 kids a week between Oahu and on the Big Island. We're also building Hawaii's first residential treatment campus for underage girls who've been exploited. So it'll be an intensive
Q103, it is the Rhythm of the Islands. On the phone right now.
Healing of body, mind, spirit, and emotion.
Wow. So with that being said, could you give me an idea of how pervasive the problem of trafficking in Hawaii is?
So we don't know the exact number of kids who have been trafficked. However, we do know that the prevalence is increasing. Arizona State University has the only Office of Sex Trafficking Intervention Research in the country, and they've been working here in Hawaii for the past 2 years, looking at demand, meaning what's driving the market here for kids and individuals to be bought and sold. They looked at what it looks like from the voice of survivors, meaning what were their experiences, how old were they getting involved. We have one of the younger ages in the country for kids who are ending up in this, with the average age of being 11.3 years old.
Wow.
And yes, and there's a direct correlation with homelessness, runaway youth, substance use, as well as poverty.
So this thing is pretty prevalent.
Yes, it is. And we have a pretty significant runaway population in the state of Hawaii, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimates there's around 23,500 kids nationally that are at risk, that are called in, that are at risk for exploitation. And they
Q103, it is the Rhythm of the Islands. On the phone right now, I've got
are at high risk for being exploited.
So, I mean, how do we help the kids? How do we restart all of this? How do we stop some of this stuff?
So when we look at restarting, we obviously have to build programming around meeting their needs, but preventing it through in-school education, as well as educating service providers, law enforcement, educators around what to look for, how to identify, how to recognize high-risk situations so that we can provide intervention sooner than later for kids. But also, when you look at why do we have this problem, it's because there's a market. If you didn't have people buying, you wouldn't need to sell people. And so we need to really look at demand and why is there such a demand for younger and younger individuals to be bought and sold for sex.
That is such a bizarre thing that there's a demand for human beings to be sold for sex. And it just blows my mind.
Big money is made off of these individuals. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry.
So, Ho'ola Nā Pua, now you founded this, correct?
I did. There was a very solid team of individuals who were very passionate about this issue. I'm actually a nurse practitioner by training, and I started seeing kids come into our emergency room that we weren't recognizing as victims of exploitation, and realized we have to do something. We have to raise the level of awareness, and we need to have a very unique and proactive response to not only the prevention, but the identification and reintegration of these youth. And then Tammy, do you want to share how you got involved?
Sure. So I had gone to a women's conference, a conference that I go to annually, and they were talking about sex trafficking, and I was like, what is sex trafficking? So I just sat in there basically and listened to the gals, and Jessica was one of the gals, talk about sex trafficking, and I pretty much sat on that for a year.
Q103, it is the Rhythm of the Islands. On the phone right now, I've got Ho'ola Nā Pua.
Again, listened, and I was like, okay, they're still talking about this thing called sex trafficking, and I wanted to get involved, so our women's team got involved. We did a little fundraiser. We showed a movie called Sex and Money. We just joined along with Jessica and her team, and then we went to a training on the mainland in California. And while we were in that training, there was a survivor that spoke. Her name is Leah. And it just kind of dawned on me at that moment, like, I am actually a victim of sex trafficking. All along, now, I got to clarify that, because all along, I just thought I made a bad choice when I was 15 years old. You know, I had gotten involved with a pimp, and I had gone to the mainland. You know, sex trafficking doesn't mean you go, out of state, but for me, I did. I went out of state. I was 15 years old. I was turning tricks and doing the thing. And then, but when I heard Leah talk, and I realized, like, I was actually coerced into that, and that falls under sex trafficking, and I was not of the age of 18 as well. So I was definitely a sex trafficked victim, but only at that moment did I identify with that, because I heard another survivor speak. And so when I came on board with Jessica, as a volunteer, I said, hey, I'm actually a victim. And it was, the rest of the team was like, what are you talking about? Because they already knew me. We were already doing work together. But I had gone through a long healing process within my church, about 10 years. And I had, gotten my identity, knowing who I am. I was no longer a victim status. And so it's just very interesting how that, that goes. Once you know who you are and what you are and where you come from, then... But you're also like, I'm looking back and I'm going, wait a minute, I was a victim. And so how many other children in our state don't realize they're being victimized? And so
Absolutely.
That's why I, come on, that's why I finally one day, after a couple, I don't know, Jess, how long was it? Maybe a year and a half or so? I was like, okay, we can tell my story in public. We can tell my story in public. Because I had told my story among my friends and among people that I trusted, but I hadn't really gone publicly. I had, shared with Jessica my whole story basically, but it was much needed, because I would see people when our other volunteers or Jessica would be speaking, they would be like, does that really happen in Hawaii? I mean, even till today, like, we've been on the ground doing this work since 2013, and we still have people looking at us going, oh, that happens in Hawaii. And so it's very necessary for me as a survivor to come out and speak about it and educate, and also encourage other survivors that it's not what happened to us that defines us, right? So we are working really, really hard to lower that, like, that stigma, like putting that label on people that have gone through this kind of thing, and especially our young people. We don't want them going through 20 years of trying to figure out who they are the way that I did.
One of the hardest things I found, so I grew up with a learning disability. I know that doesn't have a whole lot of correlation to it, but, a lot of us get labels, whether it's being, sex trafficked, and you fill that label for that purpose, or if you have, like, let's say ADHD. I mean, I grew up with ADHD, and that's a label I held for such a long time. And that's one of the hardest things for kids to get beyond, is living in that label, even after they escape from the ideology of what they lived in. So I can totally understand where it would be a very difficult thing to get out of that victimized mind and be able to empower yourself, and then start to empower others because of that in turn.
Well, I want to say that that's basically when I started working with Jessica, that was one of the things that she honored very much in my life. It was on my terms. It was my voice. Whenever I wanted my voice to come out, it wasn't like, oh, the organization was going to capitalize on my discrimination. And I think that's very important that we, realize that it's their voices that are empowering.
Well, and Tammy, you're empowering all of these young women right now who may be listening on Q103 or even on this, podcast that we're going to be putting out. And that's just the fact that you're capable of being able to dig so deep within yourself and share, what Q103 it is the rhythm done for you and how it's advocated for you in a positive way. It's quite relieving and quite exciting.
Yes, it takes a big team to do this, and it takes multiple people at the table being willing to have the conversation, because one of the challenges we see is there's still just such a lack of awareness, and there's so much cross-sectionality of the social service entities, the law enforcement entities, probation, the Department of Education. And so you really have to have people coming together to create that really collaborative response so that we can permanently remove kids from these situations and set them onto healthy, brighter futures.
So in 2020, what are you guys focused on?
We want to close our capital campaign for Pearl Haven so that we can get it open, so that we can be serving youth from around the islands through a residential treatment capacity. And we're really trying to continue to grow our direct service programs through mentoring and education and psychoeducation groups.
Now, if somebody felt like they were being sex trafficked, I don't even know how to say that correctly, how would they get in touch with you guys?
So you can go to our website, which is Hoola Nā Pua, HOOLANAPUA.org. You can also call our Starfish line, which the number is 808-222-1872. And that goes for anybody who wants to get involved. You can call us at 808-445-3131.
That's spectacular. I really, really, really appreciate you guys calling and helping me try to share this word that really needs to get out.
Absolutely. We are so honored to have this. We need more community members to be the voice, to shine the light on this issue so that we can decrease the shame and the stigma that's associated with this, so that all kids and all our adults around our islands can be free.